Hello, my name is Matthew, and this is the beginning of my tiny house library tour. And I have myself situated in front of the first bookshelf, and so I'll just start going through each book and showing you what I have. And the first book is The Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci, and this is an Oxford World Classic. Almost every book in this shelf are Oxford World Classics, and this is a great edition. It's one of those books that you can open up to any page and just read an excerpt. Just fascinating to spend time with someone who was a genius in so many different fields. And next, one of my favorite French writers. I started learning about him. I think I first heard of him through Voltaire, and this is Denis Diderot. This is Jacques the Fatalist, and it's this experimental, postmodern, philosophical novel. It was written. Let me see if it says where it was written. Well, he was a contemporary of Voltaire, and it has so many modern literary trappings. The author is arguing and talking with the reader, and depending on how the conversation goes, the story changes. The reader will leave the characters and come back, and it's thought provoking and interesting and really funny. I love Jacques the Fatalist, and I love everything I've read by Diderot. Now we have a Latin writer. We have Ovid, and this is Fasti, translated by Anne and Peter Wiseman. And this thing is like a calendar. It's a compendium and calendar of Roman events. I found it indecipherable. I couldn't read it. It doesn't seem to be a book that you sit down and read for pleasure, unless you have a lot of historical background and knowledge of the culture and time that this book took place. So this is probably a book I could get rid of easily. The next one is a biography of Alexander the Great by Arrian, and I'll show you. And I discovered this book, from what I understand, Arrian had translated the discourses of Epictetus at the time that Epictetus was writing his, he was teaching his Stoic philosophy, and Arrian was transcribing what Epictetus was saying. And I found out about Epictetus from reading the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. But this is a great biography of Alexander the Great. I really enjoyed it. It was fun and fast-paced, and not just gushing over Alexander the Great. He was this mythical character, but there's some criticism in here as well. We have Sir Walter Scott, The Antiquary. This is one of my favorite of the Walter Scott novels that I've read. I really enjoyed this one. It's I'll say that one of the things about Walter Scott is, if you read any 19th century novel, if it's anywhere in the Western canon, an English novel, a French novel, a Russian novel, it's almost as if every character, when they sit down to read, they're reading Sir Walter Scott. That's how I started hearing about this guy. Every book I was reading, all the characters are reading Walter Scott. Okay. Andy, get in here. The next we have the Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith. And the only thing I really remember about this book is it starts with how everything is so pleasant, and the main character is really content, and everything's really working out for him. And I was giggling through the whole beginning because I knew that there was a catastrophe about to happen. There was no way this guy was going to keep up this pleasant life in a novel. We have George Sand. This is Indiana. And I first learned about George Sand because she kept a correspondence with Gustave Flaubert, one of my favorite French writers. And I eventually got to read some of the correspondence between them. And this was, I did find that I enjoyed learning about her and and reading her letters more than I enjoyed this one book. And unfortunately, I couldn't find, not that I did too much research, but I haven't found too many other novels or works by her that I can read. So if you have any suggestions, it's a writer that I still would like to know more about. Okay, and we have the Analects by Confucius. And this is an enjoyable read. It's these Eastern dialogues between Confucius and these other people, and they just talk about wisdom and how to live a good life, and what is this? Few individuals have shaped their country's civilization more profoundly than Master Kong, Confucius. And so it has those epigrams and things like that. I really enjoyed it, but this is also one of those books that I would have to study and reread to really understand what's going on. I do go back to it. And we have one of my favorite writers, Plutarch, and this is the Oxford World's Classics, Greek Lives, and he wrote this giant series of biographies that were parallel lives. He would take a Greek figure and then pair them up with a Roman figure, and he would write biographies of both, and then he would write an essay that talked about both of them, comparing and contrasting their virtues and good qualities. And I studied Plutarch for about a year, and it was frustrating that the book, these biographies, were kind of split up and broken apart in a way that the author clearly didn't intend. This is still a great volume if you just want to read. Let me see if I can find. So Lycurgus, Solon, Themistocles, Cimon, Pericles, Alcibiades, Alexander. They're all great. This is Flaubert in Egypt by Gustave Flaubert, and this is a Penguin classic. I think I might have actually done a whole video on this. I can't remember, but it's excerpts from his travel log while he was traveling through the Orient and getting to Egypt. It's a fascinating read, especially if you're someone that's either really interested in Flaubert or wants to be a Flaubert completist or something like that. One of my favorite English poets, and this is a small collection of poetry by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And we have Coleridge as a fairly young man on the cover. And I have several editions of various collections of Coleridge poetry. But it's nice that it's so slim, compact. I'm sure it has basically everything that someone would know about Coleridge. So it's a great little edition. Then we have Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, and has this really great cover. And I've never been a big fan of Nietzsche, and I've never taken him seriously. This is probably my favorite thing that I've read by him. I just like the format. It's almost like this um, biblical writing from a parallel universe. It's almost like a parody of one of the Testaments or something like that. Um, it's interesting. Again, I could probably do without this book or any of the Nietzsche that I have. And we have Seneca, the dialogues and essays. This is one of my favorite covers. I just love that painting. Isn't that great? Um, Seneca was another one of these. I think he was one of these Stoic philosophers. Um, he wrote essays and dialogues. He has some plays. There's a collection of his plays that were translated by Emily Wilson, who a couple years ago did that great translation of the Odyssey. But it's more Stoic philosophy. Uh, we have Madame de Stael, and this is Corinne or Italy. Um, and I learned about her through reading a biography on Coleridge, where there was a dinner party or a meeting between these two figures, and almost like George Sand, um, I found that I enjoyed learning about her and reading about her more than the actual book. Um, and again, I couldn't find many other things that I could read by her, but um, um, yeah, so I'll just say that. Now we have The Wild Ass's Skin by Henri de Balzac, and this is translated by Helen Constantine, who is one of my favorite translators of French. She also translated Mademoiselle de Maupin by Théophile Gautier. And this is it's a supernatural French novel. It's very different than what you typically imagine from uh, Balzac. And then, okay, and then something that you would typically imagine from Balzac, we have Eugene Grandet, if that's how you pronounce it. Um, and now, these are the kind of there's a handful of these Balzac novels that are just so terrific. They're all supposed to be kind of interconnected, but just these fabulous 19th century French novels. Um, yeah. So I'll just say that. I love Balzac. Amy from A Dusty Bookshelf is doing a whole series of Balzac novels. She has like this gigantic set. Voltaire, a pocket philosophical dictionary with this little illustration. Um, it's translated by John Fletcher. And this is just like selections of excerpts from um, Voltaire's philosophical dictionary. And it's more of a collection of essays that are categorized alphabetically than any sort of dictionary that we think of today. And if you enjoy Voltaire's writing, and again, if you're sort of a completist of Voltaire, these are fun to read. This isn't my favorite edition just because it has such a slim selection, but I got it because it was a different translation. We have some of these French writers I don't know how to pronounce. Let me see. This is Manon Lesko by Abbe Provost. And it's almost like a pastoral French novel. There's romance and travel and adventure. They go all over the place. And it's just a pleasant reading. I don't even remember exactly what was happening, but it's it reminds me of those old Greek novels where they were falling in love and fantastical things are happening, and they're almost like a madcap romance. Another French novel. Now we have Bel-Ami by Guy de Maupassant. And this is translated by Margaret Malden. I liked this translation. And if you've watched my channel, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Mapasant. This is like a society novel. We have Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This is a different, like an older version of an Oxford World Classic. My old friend Bob, if you've heard me talk about my friend Bob and his two dogs, one of his dog was named Pip. And we have a collection of short stories. This is The Devil and Other Stories by Tolstoy. And aside from those big novels of his, he has a lot of really great short stories, and this is a good collection. I don't think I've read all of the short stories in here, but I've read a few. Let me say that. Another novel by Denis Diderot. This is The Nun. It's these letters. It's this like salacious, outrageous letter correspondence with this nun who is living a horrifying life. And there's tortures and imprisonment. And when this came out, I think there was some confusion about whether or not it was fictional, and it caused like this great big scandal in the church. And back to looks like we're gonna have some French writers coming up. Back to Balzac, we have Pierre Goriot. Another good French novel. Dangerous Liaisons by Laclos. This is a very, very famous, dirty French novel. It's been adapted to movies, and there's been modern adaptations. It's an upholstery novel, so there's this letter correspondence. It's good. A Life by Guy de Maupassant. I think I did a review of this book. It's sweet and sad, heartbreaking, beautiful. Dostoevsky. This is A Gentle Creature and Other Stories. Just like Tolstoy, these Russian writers that are known for their big fat books were also just amazing short story writers. Let's see. Yeah, the Dream of a Ridiculous Man. That's good. Okay, Daphnis and Chloe by Longus. So this is one of those ancient Greek novels, and I love that genre. This kind of fantastical adventure, madcap romance. It's like a lighthearted little bit of candy that would be like influenced by the Odyssey. It's amazing. The Nature of the Gods by Cicero. And I didn't read this. I started reading it, but almost just like that book that I just showed, Fasti by Ovid. I think this has a lot more of a historical interest than it does for a general reader, or maybe if you're in school and this parallels some other kind of study or something. The Wings of the Dove by Henry James. And I couldn't get through this. This is one of Henry James's difficult novels. He just cannot write a simple sentence. I have several Henry James novels, and he has such a notoriety, and there's so many times when he's so engaging and beautiful and lyrical, and there's elements that I can tell that this is clearly a great writer. And some of his books I love, and then other times they're just so difficult. And then we have three on top. This is not an Oxford World's Classic. This is, what is this? Vintage, and it's Demons by Dostoevsky, and this is translated by Richard Pever and Larissa Volonkonsky. Show that. And I did a whole review of Demons. So, and then we have two left. Protagoras by Plato is one of his dialogues. I really enjoy reading the Platonic dialogues. It always starts with Socrates picking a subject and saying, "What do you think about this?" And then somebody will say, "Why, I think this," and then Socrates says, "You're wrong." It's good. And then the last one is a collection of political writings by Thomas Paine. And this is Rights of Man and Common Sense. Let's look at that cover. And I think really important writing, especially if you're an American. And one of the things that surprised me was how readable and plain and energetic the writing style is. Thomas Paine has a way of just writing very directly and clearly to make his point, get his point across, and he makes really, really good points. I don't think I've read everything in here. I read the two main things, but he's one of those writers that I would really like to know a lot better, more than I do, anyway. And that is the end of our first bookshelf. So we're at about 20 minutes. I think that's going to be typical for a while. So let me know what you think of the books that I have. If you have any favorites or anything interesting that you'd like to say, I'm not sure. But this is the first bookshelf. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you would like, and take care. Bye.